After playing thousands of hours of BTD6, it's time to rank the heroes, so let's get started with Quincy.
Are you kidding me? Nothing gets past my bow.
Okay, buddy. Now, for Quincy, we are generally looking at a balanced hero. This is a hero you can use in chimps off the bat until, Ninja Kiwi changes its mind. But generally speaking, the damage against Moabs is good, so let's look at the strengths. The strengths are he's balanced, consistent damage. His abilities are actually pretty solid, especially the level 10 ability. It can pop a lot of ceramic, especially more in the late game. He levels up fairly quickly. He's pretty solid against Moabs. Now, when it comes to the weaknesses, he's not exactly specialized. So when you're playing Quincy, you're not really going to benefit from any unique skill sets. It's just like, general damage dealer. He's not bad. He does, however, struggle against super ceramics, DDTs, and anything fast.
Are you kidding me?
He is absolutely trash in the late game, and is basically useless when it goes past round 80.
Oh, come on!
And for these reasons, we're going to put him in a solid A tier. You can use him everywhere, but he's not really useful late game.
Seriously?
On to Obin.
Big Blue now, for the love of nature!
I want to start things off by stating that Obin is a legitimate hero. You're going to hear a lot of different opinions in other tier lists, but he is usable, let's say. So let's jump right into Obin's strength. He's a great early game hero. He pops leads by default. He is relatively considered cheap to deploy. Now granted, there are cheaper, but for the damage he deals, he's actually pretty cheap. Brambles are amazing and they can pop camos immediately. And he has this synergy with the druids that makes Pop Lust the most beautiful tower you've ever used. Finally, his wall of trees, it can stop Moabs and generate money. And then on to the weaknesses. Obin falls off pretty quickly. I would say probably around, let's say around 60, 63. He does kind of drop off there. He is very, very limited in the amount of damage he can do, especially in the later stages. And even the Poplust Druid strategy isn't the best strategy you can use in BTD6, so that means he's good, just not for the best strategy in the game. Now, because of that,
I'm waiting.
we give Obin a solid D tier.
You noxious weed.
Okay, fine, we'll go C tier. On to the ever so useful Ezili. Ezili? Why am I going this order? I don't know. I wrote the script like this. Now, let's get into the kind of hero she is. So she is a magic hero. She is best at single target damage and curses. So she is pretty effective throughout the game. Granted, she does kind of get stronger over the game's duration. But let's focus on strength. So for strength, she again is a strong single target damage. She's very effective against Moab class balloons and has her powerful curses. Plus, she has her built-in camo and lead popping powers. Now, let's get into the weaknesses. So she requires very, very good placement. That is one of her major downsides. Another one is her damage early game is actually pretty trash. She doesn't tend to do well in the early game. And finally, one of her abilities is useless and impoppable in chimps because it takes health, so that's going to be a big minus for her. However, this grants her a placement of C tier next to our other magician, Obin. And now I am glad that's over. Now on to Gwendolin. Gwendolin is a fire-based hero. She has a strong early game fire damage with lots of useful abilities, but she does fall off in the late games. So let's get on to strength. Strength, she is again strong in the early game and she has fire damage. Her abilities are pretty useful. So the level 3 ability of hers basically acts like a free wall of fire. She is solid for races and anywhere where the balloons are moving fairly quickly. Her passive is very awesome as well. It provides bonus damage pierce and lead popping power. She levels up super fast and that's about it. So on to the weaknesses. Again, she falls off in the late game, so she's not exactly the best. She cannot pop purples, making her absolute trash. No, I'm kidding. She's awesome. But she also requires very careful placement, so you gotta really know where you're putting her and next to who if you're gonna play well with her, and this is usually something you can kind of get using more specialized towers, and that's why I give her a solid B tier. Well, it's not that she is necessarily B. I would consider her just slightly better than Obin and Ezili, but she's better, so B tier.
Doesn't get hotter than this.
Yes, it does, because we are on to Captain Churchill. Now, Captain Churchill is a very powerful hero, has a lot of damage output, but is very, very expensive and levels up extremely slowly. However, despite that, his abilities are super strong and they can handle all types of balloons. So let's get into the strength. Now, for the strength, again, it's the high damage output, the very strong pierce, and the fact that Churchill is very effective against Moab class balloons. And finally, his overall abilities. They're just all really, really good. Now, when it comes to his weaknesses, weakness number one, and really the biggest nail in the coffin for him, is the fact that he's super expensive. Man, 2K is way too much to be paying for a hero. You want to start early, and this doesn't make sense for Captain Churchill. Also, his attack speed is terrible. For that time you're building up to get that machine gun, his attack speed is just absolute trash, and he might as well not be there. You just have him there till he levels up. And on that topic, he levels up super slowly. Finally, again, based on his price, he's really difficult to get into any early game.
Hey!
And sadly, for this reason, we need to put Captain Churchill in B tier. Moving on to Adora. Now, Adora is a very, very high damage hero. However, she is tough to level up and can be micro heavy. So let's jump right into her strengths. Again, she's a high damage output. Her abilities are solid. They're super strong. Her range is insane. Her attack is basically a seeking projectile and can be powered up fairly quickly with blood sacrifice. Now, the downside to that is that because she levels up so slowly, you're gonna have to use blood sacrifice, and that's gonna require a lot of investment. She's super weak in the mid game, don't mind the price either, and again, her cooldowns can make her very micro heavy, and that is why we placed Adora in the B tier.
Alright then.
Moving on to Sai. Sai is a unique hero when it comes to BTD6 with global range, high damage output, and works amazingly in expert maps. So let's start off with the strength. Again, the global range, high damage even from level 1, ignores obstacles, is extremely strong in the late game. The pop animation stalls rounds, so it's better for cooldowns, and past level 16 can destroy any round. However, when it comes to the weaknesses, it starts off with the slow leveling. This is a huge downside, as usually the strategy involves you paying to level up Sai. Sai is also relatively expensive, has a really slow attack speed, and generally not the easiest to incorporate into a strategy. And for that reason, I put Sai into a tier S.
Size matters not.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Sai. Moving on to Admiral
on
Brickell.
deck.
Now, Admiral Brickell is a very known water-based hero, and she's got a lot of strengths and weaknesses, so let's jump right into them. So her strengths, she enhances water towers. She has some solid explosive abilities. She is actually really, really good for the late game, and that kind of comes with the super mines or mega mines. And then also with the Mega Mines, yes, you can stack them up and it'll deal some intense damage when you get into the really high rounds. Now, moving into the weaknesses, she is limited to maps with water. Obviously, you can't place her unless you place her on water. Let's use abilities, but then that doesn't work on chimps. Anyways, and then she's also very timing heavy. So it's tough to time her abilities sometimes. She's very, very slow to level up. And then again, because of her microing, she could be fairly complicated to use. With all that being said, that places Brickell into a solid B tier.
Prepare the mines.
I'll try to do that. Moving on, we have Rosalia. So Rosalia is a new hero. She's a jetpack hero, supposedly an air hero, which I do not agree with whatsoever. Regardless, she comes with a laser gun and a grenade launcher. She's a solid support hero and can be repositioned for attacks. Now let's talk about strength. So the strength lie in the fact that she has multiple types of attacks. So she has the grenades, which act as little bombs, or she has a laser. She also has really solid abilities. So she has an ability where she can basically act like the heli pilot with the pursuit ability and just blow up balloons that way. And her support capabilities are pretty solid when it comes to the monkey aces and the heli pilots. And also she's repositionable, so it's not like you drop her one place and she's stuck there. However, when it comes to the weaknesses, her pierce is absolute trash. Her range is absolute trash if you don't use abilities. She relies on external camo detection because she does not come with her own. And she is very, very difficult to micromanage and requires a ton of repositioning and microing, so definitely not biased here, but yeah, okay, we're giving Rosalia a B tier.
Sweet.
Moving on to everyone's favorite French
Ready to fly.
French monkey. Anyways, okay, so Etienne is what I would consider a real aerial hero. He provides camo detection, so he has some really awesome abilities. Let's talk about his strengths. So, starting with his strength, yep, he got global camo detection is one of his passive abilities. He gives everyone camo detection. Now, that is extremely overpowered. His UCAV ability is insanely strong. He's a good mid-game support. Again, he does kind of fall off in the early in in the late game, but his mid game is amazing. He levels up reasonably fast, and he can shoot over obstacles because his drones in my map's dragons, they fly above things, so they should be fine. Now, he does have some weaknesses. He is very weak in the early game, borderline useless, and he does really low single target damage. And then finally, when it comes to things like DDTs and bosses, he is absolute trash. And for that reason, we place Etienne in the A tier.
C'est beau.
What do you get if you cross the US with balloons? You get Striker Jones.
Prepare
Now, Striker
for
Jones is a
liberation.
solid beginner hero. He has a lot of explosive blasts, hence the bazooka that he's holding. And he's awesome with Moab Mauler strategies. Now into his strengths, so he levels up very, very quickly. His stun has a really low cooldown, relatively speaking. He enhances bomb shooters and mortars. Now, we'll play into this when it gets into his weaknesses as well. He refreshes abilities with one of his abilities, but it's always in vain when fighting the black balloons. So into the weaknesses, he has very limited direct combat abilities. So you'll see that his abilities are more support than they are just directly attacking. He has one that reduces cooldowns and the other that helps mortar monk. For him to have any kind of value, he has a big reliance on explosive towers. So again, bomb shooters and mortars. And then there is basically zero strategy flexibility with this guy, making him a solid C tier.
Oh, yeah!
On to the most legendary tower in the game. You guys can tell I am not biased whatsoever. It is Pat Fusty. Where can I start with this guy? Let's get with the strengths. His damage, super high. He has knockback. He naturally pops leads. He works well with strategies where you want cooldown time for your abilities. You can place him both on land and in water. He is the only hero to be able to do this. His roar ability destroys difficult rounds. He can even hug big balloons and destroy them that way. And he hits through obstacles. And then when it comes to weaknesses, there are only 3 you can look at. His experience is kinda slow to level up. His range isn't exactly the best, and he doesn't have camo detection. Again, we can fix those pretty quickly, but just Pat Fusty. And with this, I really struggled to set a place in the tier list for Pat. After some much needed deliberation, I found that we have to create a class specifically for Pat, the super class. So the triple S is only for Pat Fusty because we love him so much. And moving on, it's time for Benjamin.
Yeah?
So Benjamin is a monkey that will, or a hero that will not do any damage, but will in fact help you make more money, which makes him perfect for anything that isn't chimps. Let's get started with his strengths. So main strength is that he helps you generate more money. Also, his Trojan horse is really strong against Moabs. He will also help you restore lives, again making him perfect for anything that isn't impoppable or chimps. Finally, his level 10 ability can make very difficult rounds look very easy, and he is solid for if you're going to boss events because the farming that you get out of him and the benefit you get to banana farms or banks is going to be crucial in defeating any of the bosses. Now, going into the weaknesses, like I mentioned, he does not pop balloons. Sometimes using his abilities incorrectly can actually be destructive to you and can make you lose money if you don't know what you're doing. Oh, finally, he's actually considered expensive when you compare him to other heroes. With that said, using Benjamin could mean the difference between winning and losing, and for that reason, he gets an S tier.
Level up.
On to the most mispronounced hero in BTD6, we have Sauda. So Sauda is pronounced Sauda. I don't care what you think it's pronounced like. It's Sauda. It's an Arabic word. It means the one with black or dark features. Kind of also means like the pretty one. But yeah, that's what the name means. That's how it's pronounced. Now please stop commenting. So,
My blade's legendary.
on to her strengths and weaknesses. Her strengths, extremely high damage, killer attack speed. She has built-in camo detection. She will pop all the camo balloons. Plus, if she gets past level 7, she can crush large groups of Moabs. Her abilities, level 3 and level 10, are completely legendary. She can pop leads with her level 3 ability. She's super cheap. You can use her on chimps. She's extremely easy to use. Just kind of drop and go. And she's just well-rounded. Now, to the weaknesses, not that many exist. Her limited range is a big one. She doesn't have any external utility, so there's not a lot you can do with her when it comes to not just dealing damage to balloons, but really, what else do you want to do? She is map dependent, so she's really good on beginner intermediate maps, but gets really hard to use in anything beyond that. And to get the full value of Sauda, you really have to know how to position her. And that is why we will be dropping Sauda into the S tier.
Get choice.
Now moving on to another mispronounced hero, Geraldo.
The store is open.
Or it's written Geraldo, but it's pronounced Geraldo. Anyways, so this guy used to be a one-stop shop, but Ninja Kiwi decided to nerf him because Ninja Kiwi doesn't like it when we have fun. Let's get into the strengths and the weaknesses. Well, the strength is the shop. The shop is absolutely amazing. You can buy a lot of things there. Now, what Ninja Kiwi ended up doing is you don't unlock the lead popping ability, I forgot what it was called, before round 28, and that kind of makes it impossible to beat round 28, especially when you're doing like a one tower chimps. However, Geraldo is still, or Geraldo is still a solid tower to get. This tower is a basically guaranteed 2-tower chimps at this point, so if you're trying to unlock that, it just get him and let's say a boomerang monkey, go onto the resort or this map as well, and you're guaranteed to win. Now, another positive is he provides camo detection, spicy potion, yep, that's the one I was looking for, that's the one that gives lead popping. His bunnies are absolute savages in the late game, and then of course the rejuvenation potion, well, all his items really. However, with the weaknesses, this is a heavy micro hero. Now be prepared to micro the living blank out of this. Plus, the diverse abilities that this guy has do make it too complicated at times, but for this reason, I believe Geraldo should be placed up in the legendary S tier.
Why, hello.
On to the final hero, Corvus. Now, Corvus is a newer hero. He's not as new as Rosalia, but does not matter. Now, this is a magic hero as well, but it is complicated. He has his own spellbook. With this spellbook come a few strengths, so he has a very high degree of burst damage. His spell combinations could basically win you any game if you know what you're doing. Now, he has been nerfed since we had the one tower chimp. He is fairly effective in early and mid game. I don't see him succeeding in late game, at least not for me. He is extremely micro heavy, and if you're good at that, you will decimate. But then that goes to the weaknesses. Again, extremely micro heavy, and if you suck at that, you're not going to be able to play him. He is a very high skill hero. Plus, stupidly enough, he struggles against purples. So, yep, in case you wanted to find another hero that couldn't beat purples, here you go. And with that said, Corvus gets a solid A tier. And this makes the conclusion of our tier list. I hope you enjoyed the video. It did take me 4 days to make. Have a good one. Bye now.